is a dirty little or big secret about an industry you've worked in that people outside the field ought to know? Story 1. I'm a celebrity event photographer in Hollywood. Most of the smaller award shows winners like the MTV VMAs, Teen Choice Awards, etc. already know they're going to win. This motivates the talent to come to the event. During the show, they are backstage talking with friends and take a seat during a commercial break just before their award is announced. The few exceptions are the Oscars and Golden Globes, where the audience is mostly celebrities. Story 2. Mobile video games are literally designed to be frustrating instead of fun. A great many mobile titles make use of mechanics that are put together with the intention of nurturing habitual behavior, frustrating a user, and then offering a slightly more enjoyable experience after money has been spent. This tactic has proven to be a more profitable model than actually offering entertainment, to the point where some companies take very careful steps to ensure that their games don't accidentally end up being fun. That sounds like satire, I know, but it's actually true. Let's suppose you had a game like Galaga, for instance. A mobile game version monetized with in-application microtransactions would probably give you the option to upgrade your ship and your weapons, purchase additional lives, and other such things. You'd be able to earn soft or grind currency by killing enemy units, with small amounts of hard or premium currency being awarded when you advanced in level or something. Now, that sounds like it would be alright, doesn't it? Hey race, where the manipulative part comes in. Though in this hypothetical game, it would be prohibitively difficult to make it beyond the 3rd level without spending money, because there'd be a recommended item of some kind that could only be purchased with hard currency. And it's usually impossible to earn enough of that from within the games themselves. This is called a paywall, and a great many mobile games take advantage of the concept, albeit to varying degrees. There's only one small problem with the game concept I just outlined. It might actually be kind of fun to play. As I mentioned previously, it's a far better idea to frustrate a user and then give them a marginally better experience after they've converted to a paying player. So, maybe what we'd do with our hypothetical title is have all of the enemies slowly become more and more difficult over the course of 5 levels or so. Then, when a user inevitably died, we'd show them some kind of pop-up message the aliens are advancing. It might say, spend 15 space credits to revive. You'll be given the option to spend 15 hard currency for a single life, or to buy a pack of lives for only 50. Either way, immediately after you made the purchase, the game would become easier and more satisfying. If there were random items dropped by destroyed enemies, you'd see slightly more of them. Your score would increase more quickly, and there would be more explosions, or in the case of a game like Candy Crush, more flashing lights and noises after the level was done. You'd get bumped back into the typical difficulty and the same frustrating experience, until you spent more money. Of course, TLDR unlocked this TLDR for $3.99. Story 3. Worked in a respected, custom jewelry store in a big city. Diamond earrings, wedding rings, etc. The price tag are in codes. When a customer asks what the price on a particular item is, the salesperson reads the code, and it is the absolute least it is allowed to be sold for. We work on commission. It is common practice to double or triple the stated price. Story 4. Wash your produce. I'm not even talking about, it's got a little dirt on it. No, see, before those grapes get to your supermarket, they went through my distribution warehouse. While they were there, a lot of time they were dropped on some filthy floors. Sometimes they fall in water that the scrubber just left behind. The scrubber with water tank that smells like sewage and leaves behind more dirt than it takes. Yeah, your grapes fell into that water. Technically, we're supposed to throw them away, but that costs money, so no one does. Seriously, wash your produce. Story 5. Former bartender here got fired for Buffalo Wild Wings for refusing to pour the cheap gut rot liquor into the top shelf bottles. You're paying $12 for a shot of Grey Goose, which could very well be the cheapest vodka you can get. For clarification, I intentionally shared the name of the company. They fired me for refusing to do shady illegal. Them, edit first of all, wholly on all the responses and upvotes. Thanks guys. Second of all, I'm a girl lol. This is a throwaway account for obvious reasons. This happened in Texas, which has pretty strict laws on the liquor issue. You have to be certified by the TABC to have any job related to alcohol, pretty much. I reported this to the TABC immediately. I also obtained a lawyer because the manager was a shady mother who outright told me I would be fired if I didn't switch out the liquor. He claimed it was to save the bar from going under. I refused. That's illegal, and I didn't want to cheat my awesome customers like that. Unfortunately, right after I got fired, I ended up being needed in another state where my dad was dying of cancer. I would have taken the lawsuit all the way to court if I hadn't been in the situation with my dad. I'm glad I chose to leave, though it gave me the chance to bond with my real dad who had never really been in my life. TLDR Buffalo Wild Wings could potentially be serving you cheap liquor disguised as top shelf. Got fired for refusing to pour cheap into top shelf bottles. Had a lawsuit. Ended up having to leave the state to be with my dying father, janitor here. Sets of keys that can open 95 of the doors in the school, even lockers, are willfully given to random 18-year-old who apply and succeed in getting a job in the custodial arts. Don't worry though, the stuff in your lockers are painfully boring. The kitchen cafeteria is probably the grossest thing I've cleaned in this school. And it's not on special occasions. It's every day. I don't know if they're feeding the kids or the floor. If a room smells good, like an air freshener, it's probably hiding something nasty that happened there. None of our cleaners smell good or bad. I've seen every bodily fluid that can come out of a human in just my first 2 years of working here. All in all, schools are gross. It's scary to see some kids walking the halls barefoot after school hours. Story 6, the active duty U.S. Army's ranks are full of frightened, lost young adults who barely know what they're doing in life. The majority of young soldiers are incredibly susceptible to propaganda, naive, and have drinking problems. Story 7, the lingerie you buy from high-end stores has probably been worn. While we do our best, dirty try-on knickers, and unless it's noticeably stained, we can't faulty it out dash. Story 8, not the most surprising, but people involved in the production and especially the sale of alcohol, even the finest wines and spirits, have insanely high rates of alcoholism. Story 9, people are always up in arms about overseas sweatshops. They should see domestic farming operations. Every single jalapeno is hand-picked, blackberries, hand-picked, etc., etc., etc. Literally back-breaking work. Hunched over for hours. Incredible, incredibly sad. P.S. I've also seen those overseas sweatshops. Not trying to minimize it, but the difference isn't nearly as big as you'd expect. Story 10, almost anything you say in an interview can be manipulated and the intentions changed in editing. I remember a specific case where a big company was on its 40th anniversary or something, and they made a video interviewing current and former employees. The closing was an old man that had worked there since the beginning and was retired. He said something, "I retired X years ago, but if they call me again today, I'd go back in a heartbeat." Slow fade to the company logo with emotional background music. Everyone cried when watching the video. I had a chance to view the original material sometime later. The interview continued, "I'd go back in a heartbeat," because it's a shame the state the new owners have it in. Someone has to beat some sense into them. Story 11, apartment, owner 9 properties. 7 years of experience. Once you get bedbugs in any unit, it's more profitable to burn the place to the ground, because those aren't going anywhere. Story 12, the vast majority of decisions made regarding policy, manpower, training, deployment, etc. in law enforcement are by gut feeling. An incredibly small number of studies have been done, and they are generally ignored. Programs to develop predictive techniques are in their infancy. There are 0 national training standards, and state standards are generally very loose. There are 18,000 police agencies in the U.S. If the UK was the size of the U.S., based on their method of organization, there would only be 200-ish. The majority of our agencies are less than 50 employees. The titles of different police agencies also vary in meaning and purpose from area to area. For the record, I love my job, but there is room for improvement. Story 13, hotels. Don't book third-party. Just use it to find the hotel and then book on location by calling the front desk. You'll pay less and the hotel will be able to modify the stay. But we can't touch or change third-party reservations. Gotta leave early due to a family emergency. Tough luck. You book third-party and already paid for nights you want to be utilizing. Edit catching a whole lot of flack, as this is a case-by-case basis. But I'm actually trying to help. Not some kind of low-paid hotel trickster. So it'll add you should always try to book ahead. Also, whatever job you have, whatever insurance, and a plethora of other things about you can qualify you for reduced rates. Ask work at Walmart. Ask participated in a dog show once. Ask fought for our country. Definitely ask. Many of us eat that right up. Story 14. I worked as a line cook for a well-known sit-down restaurant chain. People were paying $20 to $30 a plate for food that college kids were just microwaving in the back. Story 15. Okay, so it's not really dirty, but I have never seen or even heard of someone doing anything to a person's food. It's just not worth losing your job for a very small amount of revenge on it. That said, why on earth would you treat someone who has so much control over what you're eating like? Story 16. I'm a street musician. People do not give about your talent level. If they wanted to go watch an expert, they buy a ticket. Your job is to make them open their wallets to a stranger on a street corner playing novelties, video game themes, rickroll them, heavy metal on the viola. Always have at least one Beatles and one Stones tune in your repertoire that you can pull off exquisitely, but differently. My favorite is to play Paint It Black, but in a classical concerto style, then go theme and variations with it. Or my medley of Zelda, Tetris, and Super Mario, ending with the "You fell down a well and died for Mario." Story 17. Event security. the drugs and drink we take from you. We take later. Normally, the person who's on searches will ask the other staff before the shift starts what they'd like to drink take later, and we'll take that from people during their searches. If it's something and no one wants, we'll pretend we didn't see it. A lot of us drink take drugs on shift. The majority of us are not trained in any way. There are no rules. We are allowed to manhandle you in whatever way we want, and there will be no comeback. Most of us are dickheads with anger issues. I don't know if that's a secret. Most of you are ridiculous when you're drunk high. A lot of famous artists take drugs before they play. A lot of famous artist fans after they play. Story 18, every major discount sale item is made for that. They're made cheaper than the other items and are set to a very high price before the sale so that they can be regularly priced with a huge 60 off sign. Story 19, in any place that has a maintenance cleaning crew, check the type of bags and the recycling trash containers. If they're the same, chances are they all go to the exact same dumpster. Story 20, nuclear power is really not dangerous. Really, I feel like lots of people here on Reddit already know this, but whenever I mention my job to people normally, I have to hear about Fukushima or Chernobyl, a 3-mile island. I wish people would educate themselves instead of blindly following some kind of ridiculous mass phobia. Story 21, toys are not sterile from the package. They have often been placed in the package or tested by unloved human hands. Always wash your toys. Apparently, the counselors at your old summer camp were all probably found out my third year as one at a camp I'd gone to for like 8 years as a kid. Story 22, composite doors that you pay $1,200 for. Yeah, they're shipping in from Taiwan for about $60 each. They then add 12 worth of glass, 8 worth of profile, a 12 lock, cut it to size 1, and add about 4 worth of hardware, and sell it to someone local for $400. When your local supplier gets it, they do absolutely nothing with it. It's finished. They sell it to you for $1,200 fitted. FYI, a really good fitter will charge $125 to fit. Not that you didn't ever think the window and door industry was dodgy. Story 23, I've noticed that people sleep around a lot in healthcare medical institutions. Personally, not myself, but it's true that there's a lot of drama and tension for some people who are in those industries, including medical students and doctors. Story 24, due to international bans, new nuclear weapon designs for most major nations will never be tested. Nuclear warheads have an expiration date of about 20 to 30 years. The U.S. conducted its last test in 1992, 24 years ago. We rely on supercomputers now to simulate nuclear tests. At some point in the future, the majority of nuclear warheads on the planet will be designs that have never actually been tested. The individual parts are tested. The new weapons will be based on prior designs. They'll be simulated by very large computers with extremely high fidelity, but will never actually test them. So, there's a minuscule chance that WW3 is very boring because everyone's nukes don't work. Edit more info for those interested. Story 25, it's not really a secret, but it's a surprise to most people. Most contaminated land is never fully cleaned up. Most remediation aims simply to reduce the risk to an acceptable level for the intended end use. Even dig and dump remediation still presents a risk that there are still contaminants in the soil and simply shifts the problem somewhere else, a landfill. Story 26, I work in the comic book industry, and it's a well-known fact that high-ranking execs at well-known publishers are serial harassers. For one, it's gotten so bad that women aren't assigned or hired for a particular department. A female colleague of mine was given a tour of the office and was purposefully steered away from the offender. Harassment is rampant in the comic book industry as a whole, and is just in the last year or so being taken more seriously by comic pros. Though honestly, nothing has really changed. There's more diversity coming out the big publishers, but going from 0 to 3 isn't exactly what I would call progress. I'm an environmental engineer. The environment is everywhere I look. Property is contaminated to some extent. Story 27, that fabric softener is not only completely pointless as it damages your clothes, but that it's also dangerous since it makes your clothing more flammable. A better use for the solid ones like the unstoppable beads is as components in passive air fresheners. Story 28, I work in a small restaurant. And if you bring your own cake to a party here and ask us to cut it up and serve it for you, the kitchen staff will keep a piece for ourselves, not out of vengeance or anything. We just can't resist cake. Story 29, I've been a teacher for 12 years. The vast majority of teachers I've known are on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. Consistently, they've reported their doctors told them every teacher they treat is on medicine. Counseling training would be invaluable as a teacher. The majority of my job is not actually teaching academics. It's teaching life skills, interpersonal skills, and self-regulation skills. And some of this training is for parents as well who are doing the best they know how, but haven't been taught the skills they need to be effective. We all consistently watch for and help students who are suicidal, abused, neglected, addicted, etc. When we help these students and have to release them back to their families or to a hospital or they just disappear in a way, yes, this happens with disturbing frequency. We worry about them. Even students who appear normal often have so much going on that they need a safe place to talk and to just be themselves. We always want students to come back and let us know they're doing okay, that they're making it, and that they're happy. Edit for clarification, I myself am an inclusion special ed teacher. This means I directly teach students in our program to remediate a variety of skill deficits, academic and non-academic. But I also co-teach all students special ed and gen ed and inclusion classes, while most of the inclusion teaching is academic. Even then, we teach and model essential non-academic skills our students need to succeed. The good co-teachers I have worked with intuitively model and teach important non-academic skills alongside the academic standards required. They also counsel students and parents who connect with them, as well as push students to grow in non-academic ways. We are all invested in teaching our students whatever skills they need to succeed. Story 30, I used to work at Chipotle, and when the lines would get too big, they'd undercook the chicken to decrease the amount of time, to increase the amount of food made. And they'd say not to worry about it. This was 3 months ago after the E. coli outbreak. They'd also make you work full-time as a high school student. Including getting home at 1 in the morning after going in at 3, I did not stay long. Story 31, no matter how nasty you are to a food service worker, there's a very, very good chance that they will not do something nasty to your food that is very frowned upon. We all go out to eat. Edit, I'm saying this from my own experience working in food service for years. From the viewpoint of someone who has been preparing food for nice folks and complete alike, I get it. It happens. I've heard firsthand account from people who've done it. I'm just saying the chances are good that your food will not be messed with. Story 32, I work for the USPS. All of your packages are thrown. For sorting and loading purposes, it's just easier to throw them. Even the ones marked fragile. Well, throw those underhanded, though. Story 33, almost all security is reactionary or an illusion. I have work in a few places, and this is always the case. Either we're trying to look big, bad, and scary, or we're just waiting for the worst to happen. Story 34, many special education students spend more time with aides than teachers. The teacher is spread too thin, too many kids to service, and swamped with meetings and paperwork. Story 35, when you buy something online, the shipping you pay often has no relation to what the package will actually cost to ship. The prices are chosen by marketing types, not set by the fulfillment chain. Story 36, I used to work in state government, specifically Child Protective Services, and it really matters who your worker is when you get referred for services. It's all about the people, whether it be economic services or social services. It doesn't matter. I've seen absolutely shitty service due to workers who didn't give a, or who had their own biases they brought into the job. I've also seen and worked with people who were like angels on earth, sacrificing their time and energy to help people who desperately needed to catch a break. In our self-service, automated, voice-activated world, it's easy to forget that the really important decisions are still made by a person. It's quite a sobering thought to realize that your economic security or the status of your family's well-being could rest in the hands of a randomly assigned state employee. But that's exactly what some people face. Specifically when talking about CPS, you're making decisions that directly impact a child's and the rest of the family's well-being, and the cavalier attitude that some workers had when doing the job made me sick to my stomach sometimes. Story 37, I used to be a dispensing optician. Before that, an optical lab technician. I know this will be pretty obvious to some of you, but you know all those designer frames people pay $100,000s for? Yeah, they don't cost much at all. The most expensive wholesale price I ever saw was a Chanel frame that cost around $30. That would then be shipped for about $400. That's not including the lenses. Story 38, I work at a casino as a gaming attendant. This might come to a shock to some serial gambling addicts, but the machines are programmed to make you lose, not win regardless of how you play. Rubbing the machine for luck or asking for lucky notes doesn't help. Story 39, that delicious blueberry blackberry egg. Wine you love so much is not actually fermented blueberries. It's a fruity, light to medium-bodied, non-barrel-aged red wine like Merlot mixed with cheap blueberry concentrate. Story 40, if your satellite TV gets switched off to prompt you to pay your subscription, you're due a refund on the lost viewing time. They won't give you one unless you specifically ask for it. However, relying on customers not asking saves the company millions in refunds every year. Story 41, not as cool as some other posts and not really a secret, but I work for a large telco, and one thing we do is install managed Wi-Fi, usually Cisco Meraki. So basically when you go to a hotel, Starbucks, the mall, Home Depot, etc., and they have free Wi-Fi. That stuff is tracking the out of you and is the main selling point of it. They can see reports detailing every time you come into the store, how long you stay there for, and so on. Mostly need to agree to the terms or create an account, and they always have Facebook login. Everyone uses Facebook login to save time, as it is literally 2 clicks versus making an account. But now those reports are 10x more detailed, as they know your age, gender, where you're from, can see your entire friend list. They know where you work and everything. 40 of the reason people buy the managed Wi-Fi is for the actual Wi-Fi. The other 60 is for the metrics and reporting. I disabled Facebook extensions forever ago and won't ever use free Wi-Fi anywhere now, as those reports are crazy detailed. Story 42. About half a year ago, I had an internship at a house management company. The employees were often bitching about the customers. Many times I had to calculate bills about gas, water, electricity, etc. They told me I should calculate it for the current year like they did it last year. But when I checked how they did it last year, I realized that they made huge miscalculations. So many tenants had to pay much more than they actually should have had to pay, and some had to pay less. When I confronted the employees with it, they told me that I should tell nobody about it, or they will give me a bad evaluation. Story 43. You can pretty much ad-lib any lie you wish, and Family Video will waive your late fees. At the very least, most of them. Never pay your entire late fee. If you offer to pay half, Family Video employees are trained to waive the other half. I don't remember renting any of those movies. Can you please add a check ID to my account so this doesn't happen again in the future? Someone must have used my account without my permission. Edit waive. For the people whose day my misspelling ruined. Story 44. I do not work in the music industry yet, but I've recently learned about the horrors of payola. With little exaggeration, record labels are forced to pay incredible bribes to radio stations, or rather, nationwide conglomerates of stations, just to get one of their new artists some airtime. It's both astonishingly common and frustratingly difficult to battle legally, as proved by a court case a few years back. Story 45. I owned the first radio in Springfield. Of course, all that was on in those days was Edison reciting the alphabet. A, he'd say, then B, C would usually follow. Story 46. I know this from past retail and grocery experience. They already know that the thing you want is gone. They just go in the back and around for 5 minutes before coming back out to tell you it's not there. And yes, the managers know about it. If it was there, it would be on the shelf. The only time when this is not the case is when the product has literally just arrived and is still being checked in. But they were wrong once, and occasionally criminals turn themselves in, too. Just believe the people who are intimately aware of the stock they're working with. Randomly denying sales to people helps no one. Story 47. There's an IT guy at your office, probably more than one, who can see and update all data if he wants to: wages, taxes, raises, emails, everything. Story 48. I work at a U.S. lobbying firm, and I'm sure no Redditor would be shocked to hear that U.S. legislators are ignorant. You might be surprised just how ill-informed a lot of them are, though, like the congressman who believed David Cameron was a member of the Socialist Party, or the one that asked me why we called it Russia now, not the USSR, or the senator who told me he'd grown up drinking seawater, and it was healthier for you, or the governor who thought all Jews were killed by Hitler. The list could go on. Story 49. Bartenders can get what is known as bar rot from our hands being wet from the glassware so much. It is when the nail beds on our hands start getting a fungus in them. Sort of similar to athlete's foot. Super gross. Super thankful for not having to hand wash the glassware at my place of employment. Story 50. I was a roadie. Even music venues near you, those little one-owner ones, can be fronts for something. Have you ever thought about how easy it is to hide how much money you're making when you put on a festival? Who's keeping track of how many tickets sold, the different prices or advance sales and same-day sales, how much the artists get paid, etc.? How about all those t-shirts? Got any proof of how much they sold for? The opportunities to cook the books are endless. It's a business that people who need to make illegal money legal are very likely to get into. And of course, the drugs, the girls, and the girls who like drugs, these things are very attractive to criminals. I remember a party in Phoenix at the home of the mafia guy who had the operating room in his house for a local plastic surgeon to use for changing the faces of serious criminals. I mean, changing the faces with plastic surgery, as in getting surgery, so they didn't look like their wanted poster anymore. This was years and years ago. If I thought it was still there, I wouldn't be talking about it. I'm so glad to be away from people like that these days. The music industry is shady. A lot of record companies and/or venues are fronts for drug laundering. You're not far away from criminal money no matter how hard you try to be. TLDR guy had a full operating room in the middle of a huge house. Think about what's involved when you're hanging out with people like that. Nope, like for real. You're going to let us see this and not kill us. And then I realized that we can't go to the police. people like that own the police. I still think about that place now, and then, glad it'd been more than a few years. Craziest thing I ever did see. Story 51, not really dirty as in bad, but definitely unknown. The dosimeters, little things you wear to record how much radiation you've received from working on a nuclear-powered reactor, have to be very finely tuned and extremely sensitive to distinguish added radiation from the enormous load of environmental radiation that is available anywhere you go. The dosimetry department guy I worked for told me that he liked to annoy nuclear power protesters by telling them to go sit on a concrete wall, because he knew they'd get significantly more radiation exposure doing that than actually working on the reactors they were protesting. Story 52, this isn't necessarily a dirty secret, more of a truth that a lot of people won't accept. I work for social services in the adults division, which is about assessing for care and protecting vulnerable adults. If you call in with something you say is urgent, most of the time it won't be prioritized that way. To social care professionals, something urgent is something that needs to be sorted immediately, e.g., respite care to start that day, or where the person is in immediate danger from someone else, e.g., they're experiencing ongoing physical abuse or severe neglect. If the issue isn't one of those two things, chances are ITLL be sent to a worker as normal priority with a note that the person wants it sorted ASAP. If we mark lots of cases as urgent, because the person says it is, it's much more difficult for social workers to prioritize their cases and sort out the impending crisis kind of stuff fast. TLDR, what is urgent to you may not be urgent to the professionals. And it makes our job much harder when we have people insisting their case be prioritized above people who might be in real crisis. Story 53, not even a secret, but it needs to be said again, going to the hospital by ambulance doesn't get you in faster. If you're truly sick, you will go right through triage. If you're full of, with the exception of a fairly bad impacted bowel, they're going to make you sit in the waiting room until they feel like dealing with your have no excuse not to deal with your. That being said, EMS can provide a lot of pre-hospital care. So, if you're actually injured sick, it is a better idea to call an ambulance rather than drive yourself. Story 54, some hotels will intentionally overbook their rooms so that they have full occupancy if some people don't show up. If too many people show, they're walked to another hotel. Story 55, I'm paid as a work-study position at my university to give tours to students thinking about attending the school. I'm encouraged by my boss to ask the student what major they're considering, then say that's my major, haven't done it yet, but other tour guides definitely do. Story 56, a large pepperoni pizza from Little Caesars only costs $1.92 to be made. Also, their specialties like a supreme or 3 meat, which is $8.72, is only a few cents more to make. Edit for more info. Story 57, servers are racist and ageist. Mostly racist, though. The restaurant industry is also extremely segregated. Whites are overwhelmingly in front of the house positions. The positions involve interacting with the actual guests, take orders, and things like that. In the back of the house, workers are seen rarely or less often than FODH employees. Comparatively speaking, both workers are overwhelmingly filled with people of color, African, Asian, Middle Eastern, Hispanic, etc. It's all pretty ugly. Your waiter is judging you, and they may treat you different based that judgment. Think about these things next time you eat out. Story 58, motorcycle industry. Harleys are not very high quality, even though they have an enormous market share in the USA. The last Consumer Reports article rating reliability of motorcycle brands indicated 1 out of 4 Harleys needed warranty service. Japanese brands are the highest rated at only 1 out of 10 needing warranty service. Story 59, ex-baker here. Most places that claim freshly baked are lying. They get away with baking off frozen baked goods, so technically they have been freshly baked from frozen. If you want to test your local bakery, just ask them what time their baker starts. If there's no one there from 4 or 5 a.m., you're eating pre-frozen baked goods. Story 60 on airplane flights. There is no equipment on board that lets any of the flight crew know passengers are using their phones, laptops. There's no sensor. There's no instrument that tells them. There's no interference that shows up. If you're on a flight where a flight attendant gets on the PA and says, "There's still 6 phones on," it's a bluff. Source involved in all airplane certifications for use of portable electronic devices on airplanes. Story 61, for every 10 magazines on the rack, 9 get sent back to the wholesaler for shredding. The whole industry has become antiquated and is taking up valuable checkout space. Story 62, lock your hotel room door with a deadbolt and the crossbar. Everyone has keys to your room. That doesn't mean you aren't safe, but I don't believe in taking chances. 10 years a hotel manager. Story 63, lawyers have ungodly high rates of alcoholism, substance abuse, coke, painkillers, etc. and depression. Basically, everything you think about lawyers is tempered by how taxing the profession, mainly getting into it, can be. Story 64. I'm a funeral director. Hey race, my two big ones. Active duty military deaths are never considered a suicide unless the deceased left a suicide note. It's always labeled accidental. Even if the person shot themselves, it's to keep suicide numbers low. I work the contract, would get one accidental suicide a week for one funeral home. The numbers are insane. I went to college, got my degree, passed extensive board exams, etc., then was forced to move to Colorado, where I found out you don't have to have a license or degree to be a funeral director. It's one of the only states the pay is because any Joe Schmo can come in and embalm without any formal training. It's despicable and dangerous. Formaldehyde causes cancer, and the work I've seen come out of these funeral homes and directors is terrible. Story 65. Just about all rye whiskey is made at one huge distillery in Indiana. So, if you see a small micro distillery put out a 95 rye, it is safe to assume they just purchased it from MGP of Indiana. The same can be said for any spirit that is significantly older than the distillery. If a brand new craft distillery opens up with 3-year-old liquid, then they could have produced that and have been not making a profit for 3 years waiting for the liquid to be ready before they released it. However, if they release a 20-year liquid right as they open, there is no way they distilled that and had to have bought someone else's distillate to relabel as their own. The alcohol industry is rife with like this. Story 66. You know how you get live online support where you type in messages to an individual with support staff? Yeah, in most cases they can read what you're typing before you hit send. Story 67. Fracking has made your ice cream more expensive. The same thickener used for ice cream is used in frac fluid. It's driven price up because drilling companies pay more than ice cream makers. Story 68. I am a cashier at a larger grocery store. This year, managers implemented a new policy. If the item scans through at $4.99 and the customer tells me that the sign said $2.99, I'm supposed to alt price that to $2.99 and write customer satisfaction on their receipt. It's as simple as that. Previously, I would have to call a price checker and have them find that tag. For a $2 difference, this took ages, especially if the price checker was busy. With this new policy, this means that any customer can come up and say, oh, I saw this for $5.00 instead of the scan price of $25.00 when they know this is not true. We basically do whatever customers want. Story 69. Chocolate diamonds are a marketing ploy to sell crappy diamonds. They are actually really low-grade diamonds that are filled with various elements that give them the brown color. They used to never be saleable and would go to waste, so someone decided to give them a desirable name and charge for it.